Hello and welcome to your second session of Achieve Your Best Self. I'm so glad you've made it. As I discussed in the last webinar, if all you can do is attend these webinars, you're well on your way to achieving your goals with regards to your body composition. Okay, so for today's webinar, we're going to be talking about what causes adiposity and the interaction between genes and hormones and how they contribute to body composition issues. Secondly, we're going to discuss health hazards associated with fat or increased fat mass, which the medical term for it is adiposity. And lastly, we're going to discuss hunger as it relates to our goals and what it means for each of us and how we can best address it. Okay, so just a little bit of science before we go any further, and I promise we're going to keep it as simple as we possibly can. This image here shows a scan of the body so a cross-section of the abdomen showing the different levels of fat or fat tissue. Okay, so as you may already know, the fat underneath our skin is not as much of a health concern as the fat that surrounds our internal organs. So as you can see here, the low adiposity image does not have much of the pink tissue, which is the fat mass, whereas the high adiposity has a lot of that fat that's unhealthy and can cause or be a contributing factor to chronic diseases like heart disease and cancer. Okay, so through this program, our goal is to lower this fat mass that you're seeing here. Okay, so why do we want to treat adiposity? Well, because it has been shown to increase bad cholesterol and lower good cholesterol. It's also been shown to contribute to type 2 diabetes. It has also been shown to increase risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it used to be thought that a fatty liver was a concern with people who drank a lot of alcohol, and so there was the alcoholic fatty liver disease. But what they have found recently is that you can see the same damage to the liver in people who do not drink, who are not alcoholics and do not consume alcohol heavily. What they found though was that sugar and fructose causes the same damaging effects to the liver as alcohol does. So this is another reason why we want to treat body composition issues. There's also a lot of correlation between adiposity and various cancers, as well as been estimated that 15 to 20% of all cancer deaths in the United States, and I bet in Canada, can be attributed to overweight and obesity. Next, I have an image to describe what insulin resistance is. And I want to explain this because this is something that we're going to be addressing and talking about a lot in this webinar and in all our upcoming webinars. Insulin is basically the hormone that you want to address and get under control if you want to put your body in fat burning mode. Okay, as long as insulin is high and as long as your body is resistant to insulin, your body is not in fat burning mode. Okay, so what is insulin? Insulin is basically a hormone that signals to your body to take sugar inside. Okay, so the way I've learned to explain it is, imagine you're throwing a big, big party. Okay, so you have, got the party ready. People are beginning to come in. As the party gets started, you realize, wait, you're missing some food, some groceries, and so you run out to get some more. But by the time you come back, the party has started and it is now so loud inside that no matter how many times you ring the doorbell, no one can hear you. So you've got this big bag of groceries outside. You've got all this food waiting to go in and feed all the hungry people inside, but they're just so loud that they can't hear you. This is exactly what's happening inside your cell. Your cells have been bombarded with the signal of insulin for so long, and because there's been so much of it that they've kind of become deaf to its signal. Okay, it's just like, when your ears hear so much white noise, they eventually basically mute that noise out, right? So your cells have currently, most likely, muted out the signals of insulin. And so what does your body need to do? Release more and more and more insulin to get it to listen. So this is what happens with the sort of the vicious cycle of high insulin leading to further insulin resistance, and insulin resistance requiring your body to release more and more insulin. And this process basically shuts down your fat burning mode. Okay? This is the hormone we're going to be addressing. Very exciting stuff, and it's very easy to do. You just need to know how to do it. Okay? So again, another reason why we want to address adiposity and insulin resistance is because insulin resistance is a direct contributing factor to the development of cancers. Okay? So high insulin shuts down what's known as apoptosis. Apoptosis is when your cells that have developed abnormally naturally kill themselves. Okay, so they go through a process where they naturally destroy themselves when they're formed abnormally. So these are the cancer cells that are beginning to form, and your body naturally just shuts them down. But when you have high insulin, that natural process does not take place. And what's worse is that insulin increases the proliferation or the multiplication of these abnormally formed cells. And that then, unfortunately, leads to tumor development. So if nothing else, but to make sure that you prevent your chances of getting cancers of any type, the best thing you can do is to get insulin under control. Okay, so what causes increase in fat tissue? We are going to go over genetics, hormones, and whether slow metabolism is really a fact or fiction, and how can we address all of these. Okay, so with regards to genes specifically, we have had a rapid rise in incidence of adiposity over the years. However, genes do not change so quickly, and so we can't attribute all the rise in adiposity to genetics. Okay, they do play an important role, and we're going to address how to get your bad genes under control. But again, to sort of single-handedly say it's genes that lead to obesity and adiposity, that is not true. Okay, so with regards to genes, what is the fix? If you do have some of those abnormal genes that increase your chances of accumulating fat cells and increasing the size and the number of fat cells in your body, how can we address that? Well, the fix seems to be fasting. There are a number of studies that show that certain populations have genes that don't favor optimal, healthy, low body fat. However, as the interplay between environment and gene expression has shown, one way to alter the expression of these genes is actually through fasting. Now, as we will go on, this idea of fasting will come up again and again. And so it isn't to say, okay, for you unfortunate few, given the bad genes, you're just going to have to starve if you want to achieve your best body. I'm just verbalizing what you may be thinking. But the point is, fasting can actually be beautiful. It has many benefits other than just altering your fat-making cells or genes. It is actually a natural part of life. And if you know how to do it right, you will enjoy it in time. Fasting normalizes every hormone necessary for the burning of fat for fuel. It increases growth hormone. And this is a hormone which is the fountain of youth. So if you if you're going to try fasting purely for vanity's sake, let's do it. As well, fasting helps with nerve regeneration. And again, if your goal is to be less forgetful, to be as quick a learner as you were 10, 20 years ago, and to continue to alter and shape your brain as you'd like, fasting is the ticket to doing that. And so my goal here is to just plant the seed to help you consider fasting. So I'm not pushing you to do anything yet. Let's just see how your conscious and subconscious mind feel about this. And continue to nurture a childlike curiosity towards fasting. Okay, now with regards to hormones, there are certain hormones that do cause an increase in basically fat mass accumulation, okay? For example, fat cells have been shown to diminish when there are high numbers of androgens present in optimal amounts. So androgens are testosterone and basically DHEA, which is a precursor to your cortisol hormone. You don't really need to know all the science behind it, but we're going to talk about how to make sure you can boost these hormones to your favor. Okay, next, cortisol. So cortisol has been shown to worsen insulin insensitivity. Okay, again, the hormone that you want to address, cortisol can worsen the effects of insulin. So we want to make sure that we have our stress hormone under control and we do not have excessive cortisol production. Because as well, cortisol can interfere with your metabolism due to its effects on your thyroid hormone. Because cortisol is a stress hormone, and in times of stress and the fight or flight response, you want to conserve as much energy as possible. What cortisol actually does is it takes the active thyroid hormone, so T3, and turns it into its inactive form, which is known as reverse T3. Okay, so it kind of slows down your metabolism, this stress hormone. And our goal will be also, with regards to body composition, to lower our stress response. We can't always lower the stress we're sort of given in life. You know, stress is a given part of life, but you want to learn to cope with it better. And if that is something that is a big issue for you, let's address it in our one-on-one visits. As well, there's a whole lecture dedicated to addressing stress. And so we'll talk further about this. Okay, so what can we do where cortisol and DHEA is concerned? We want to support the adrenal gland because that is the gland that produces cortisol. And we want to have a healthy stress response. So as we talked about, we want to learn stress management techniques that are helpful and supportive. The foundation for healthy adrenal function is sleep. Again, this is a whole webinar will be dedicated to sleep. You want to make sure you're active and you're having good balanced meals. You may not know this, but an unbalance in your meals, if you're having, let's say, too much sugar, the resulting crash that results from having too much sugar and not having it balanced with good proteins and fats, that crash is a stress on the body. Just like a mental emotional stress causes a stress response, when your blood sugar drops too much as a result of high insulin and too sugary of a meal, that is also requiring a stress response. So your body responds with the same high cortisol as it would if dealt with a mental emotional stress. So if you can limit any of the stressors in your environment, physically, mentally, emotionally, you're on your way to more balanced hormone responses. Additional support where hormones are concerned, fish oils have been shown to lower cortisol. That's why most of you are already on fish oil supplements. There are also adaptogenic herbs, so herbs that help boost your resilience and help you deal better with stress. They can help support you. Again, those would be recommended on an individual basis. Okay, so we've already talked about insulin, but this is one of the most important hormones that contributes to fat, okay? It also increases your appetite, so, it functions in your brain and the functions of your nerves and neurochemicals as well, and it specifically causes abdominal obesity or adiposity. Okay, we've already talked about insulin resistance, but again, that is the sort of hormone and function we want to have under control to increase fat burning. So what is the fix when it comes to insulin? Well, as we discussed, you want to make sure your meals are balanced in simple carbohydrates, adequate protein, and fats. That ensures that there's a slow release of sugar in the blood, and as a result, a slow increase in insulin that will over time slowly begin sensitizing your cells to the signal of insulin again. You want to eliminate excessive consumption of sugars, including sugar substitutes. So you may be thinking, okay, sugar substitutes don't actually have any calories, they don't increase my calorie consumption, but what you may not know is that taste, that sweetness in your mouth begins causing a release of insulin. So even though that sweet flavor does nothing but provide you with, that sweet sensation that gives you pleasure and has no calories, it still causes a release of insulin and leads to an insulin high, which is what we want to avoid. Okay, next, as we discussed, fasting helps lower insulin. Okay, that is something we're going to learn to do slowly to appreciate and enjoy hunger and begin incorporating fasting as part of our regimen. Next, physical activity. So obviously being more active means your cells produce more mitochondria in them, and the more mitochondria you have, the more fuel you need to burn, okay? Next, healthy stress management, because as we talked about, the more stressed you are, the more cortisol your body releases, and as a result of cortisol, the more insulin, the less insulin sensitivity, so the more insulin resistance you will have, which is not what we want to have, okay? Again, supplement support, fish oil, cinnamon, chromium, bitter melon, green tea extract, and capsaicin or cayenne pepper. These can all help lower insulin. Again, these are supplements that we will discuss in our one-on-one visits if needed in your case. Next, the hormone leptin is a hormone that plays a role in regulating your food intake and your energy expenditure, including your appetite and your hunger and metabolism. Just like insulin, high amounts of fructose can cause leptin resistance. Again, this is where your cells are not responding to the signal of insulin or to leptin. So when leptin would be there to tell you to stop eating and telling you you're not hungry anymore, when there's leptin resistance going on, your cells do not hear that signal, and so you keep eating because your cells are not responding as they really should. Okay, so again, this is where there may be a factor where genetics are concerned. However, there's a way to abolish the negative genetics that may be going on, and research has shown that a high omega-3 diet with a low omega-6 diet, so focusing on fish oils, flax oil, avocado, butter, nuts and seeds, and lowering your intake of the omega-6 vegetables like corn, soy, and canola can help where the faulty genetics with regards to the hormone leptin are concerned. As well, adequate sleep has been shown to also counteract the genetic predispositions. So now, slow metabolism, is it fact or fiction? I know, why does it take 6 weeks to lose 5 pounds but only 1 day to gain it all back? Well, apart from the fact that this is a joke, really, you shouldn't be weighing yourself every day. We've already talked about that, so hopefully you put your scale aside and you're not weighing yourself every day, because everybody fluctuates from day to day. 1 to 2 pounds, maybe even 5 pounds. You know, do not weigh yourself. And so, yes, it's still true. It's easier to gain weight than to lose it, especially when your goal is weight loss, when you're constantly on the scale. Okay, so get yourself off the scale, throw it away. So with regards to metabolism, the thyroid gland that releases thyroid hormones regulates metabolism. But hypothyroidism, which is a sort of a slow functioning thyroid gland, as a disease is not the only cause of body composition issues, as we've seen that with a thyroid imbalance that is corrected, we don't always see it resulting in a correction of body composition, or in other words, weight loss. Also, if you remember a couple slides back, there's a lot of interplay between the stress hormone cortisol and thyroid hormones. So you can have a fully healthy and functioning thyroid gland, but your level of chronic stress is converting all the good active thyroid hormones that are supposed to maintain your metabolism at a healthy level and converting it into the inactive form due to cortisol. Now again, I want to just mention cortisol itself per se and stress is not a bad thing. So stress is not a bad thing. It's how well it's balanced, how well it's maintained, how well you are managing it. And that you may need some help where that is concerned. Okay, so cortisol is not a bad hormone. It is bad when it is chronic, when it is not addressed properly. Now, what are some solutions where adiposity is concerned? Well, unfortunately, in our world today, we've been made to believe that the only solution is dieting. And so bookshelves are full of diet books and medical institutions are bent on coming up with the latest miracle diet. Sadly, though, that's not the answer. And so focusing on dieting will not give you your results and will likely only get you stuck in a vicious cycle of yo-yo dieting. Now, we'll quickly go over some of the diets found out there and what's right and what's not so right about them. So we've got Atkins, South Beach, the glycemic index diet, Mediterranean diet, the French diet. There are some good and some bad about each of these. The Atkins diet has 0 carbs, and so it can be dangerous to the brain due to the fact that our brain's sole use of energy is glucose. And so when ketoacidosis sets in, which is what the Atkins diet aims as a way of losing fat, it requires close medical monitoring. So it's not something you want to be doing on your own or even long term, because it can have adverse side effects. The South Beach diet is based on a glycemic index, but it is low fat. And that's not really recommended because all fats, whether saturated fats or not, are essential and part of the complete diet. The glycemic index is a good diet. However, there are more factors than just the glycemic index of individual foods that you should be taking into consideration. We know that combining your foods is more important than the glycemic index of each individual food group. Mediterranean diet is great. It is wonderful. So even if that's all you're doing, I think you were well on your way to achieving your body composition issues. As we talked about previously, what studies have found that it's not just the diet that you go on that determines your success. It's also the support you receive as you go on whatever diet it is you choose to go on. So Mediterranean diet is actually a good one. The French diet basically refers to the way the French people eat. They don't diet. And we'll talk about how the French eat that is healthy and is beneficial, and it's something that we perhaps want to consider emulating as a way of eating. So not as a diet, but as a lifestyle. Elimination diet and detox diets are good and can be helpful and beneficial depending on your needs. Again, the rest of it is kind of, these are all diets that you do not want to be on long term. They can have quick results, but with quick results, you also have quick sort of yo-yo effects. Okay, so I don't recommend any of the others. Dr. Bernstein's diets, it's very severe. You basically cut down your food intake to 600 calories a day. I have had people tell me that they're not even allowed to put oils on the skin because of the fact that their body is going to absorb that oil and maybe even potentially use it as calories. I don't know, but anyways, these are not healthy in any way. Okay, so again, where diet effectiveness is concerned, your best bet is to find something that works in your lifestyle, to find something that you can stick to and adhere to for the rest of your life. So you want to develop a lifestyle as opposed to go on a diet. And that is what our goal will be in the next 6 weeks, to figure out what is it that works well for you and what is it that you can stick to for the long term in the next 6 months, year, 5 years, 10 years from now, that you will be comfortable and happy with continuing. Okay, so it is best to select an enjoyable, palatable eating plan that can be easily incorporated into your diet and your lifestyle. So why don't we do the French Stone Diet Plan? Okay, now we're going to briefly talk about diets and hunger. Unfortunately, we associate hunger usually with a diet, with hardship, and with discomfort, especially if you have yo-yo dieted for years. You're most likely very averse to the sensation of hunger, and you will most likely do anything to avoid it. You're likely very uncomfortable with it. However, we're going to slowly help change that for you, because hunger is in reality very healthy and essential to your overall health and well-being. Okay, so I want to read you an excerpt from an article in the Huffington Post. It's an old one from 2013, but it sums up my points beautifully. It goes, hunger has a very negative connotation in our society. Our immediate reaction to the word is that it's a bad thing, something to be eradicated and fixed. Of course, when we're using the word hunger to describe the issue of food insecurity, we are indeed describing a problem. However, when there's plenty of food available to eat, for example, in our North American society, hunger is actually a lovely part of the overall eating experience. To put it simply, food tastes better when you're hungry. So again, let's go back to our imagery of thirst and our relationship to water. Is this beginning to shift things for you slightly? I hope so. And if you're finding yourself struggling and in discomfort with this idea, that's okay, as that's completely expected. But do bring it up with me in our one-on-one session so we can dig a bit deeper and see what limiting beliefs there may be in your subconscious that's causing you to struggle. And we can then hopefully together, slowly and over time, address it. Okay, so let's talk briefly about intermittent fasting. This is a slightly vague term, and followers of this diet or way of eating may choose to skip a certain meal in the day. They may fully fast every other day or every other week, or myriad variations in eating may be considered intermittent fasting. So why do we want to do this? Well, firstly, it has been shown, at least in animal studies, to increase lifespan with major outstanding improvements in health markers such as insulin sensitivity. So again, body composition, so the ratio between fat mass and muscle mass, and neuroregeneration capacity, so the functioning of your brain and your nerves. Okay, there are 3 ways by which fasting through the day, so I usually recommend 14 to 16 hours of fasting in the day, 3 ways by which that helps support your goals, okay? So it reduces your oxidative stress. You may have heard of antioxidants. Antioxidants basically are nutrients that help lower the oxidative stress or combat oxidation in the body. Well, if you can completely reduce the oxidative stress in your body, then you have a lower need for antioxidants. Okay, and this in turn basically helps reduce your chances of suffering from age-related chronic conditions and diseases. Fasting has been shown to increase insulin sensitivity and the efficiency by which your mitochondria burn fuel and produce energy. So in other words, it has been shown to increase your metabolism. Okay. Lastly, it has been shown to increase your capacity to resist stress, disease, and aging. So, interesting enough, one way for your body to be able to better cope with stress, it's actually by habituating it to fasting. Okay, so fasting has been shown to increase genes that increase your body's ability to cope with stress and resist disease and aging. Okay, so how do we want to do it? Because it's personalized, we're going to talk about it in our one-on-one visits, but it basically boils down to this. You want to have small servings of vegetable proteins, nuts and seeds, green vegetables and berries, about every 3 to 6 hours depending on your level of physical activity, but only when you're truly hungry. Okay? Again, just touching base on why hunger is essential to your success. And let's talk about some of your potential struggles against this. Let's talk about the French again. The French instinctively are familiar with the feeling of hunger, and they do this naturally in their pattern of eating. They do not snack in between meals, and they have a habit of arriving at the table with a nice appetite. And they see that as an essential ingredient to good food. Okay, so consider this. Here are some reasons why you should embrace hunger in your daily life. Eating in the absence of hunger means you are most likely overeating. Second, hunger allows you to enjoy your food, so you can actually take more pleasure from your meals. And as a result, feel more satiated at the end and less likely to overeat or snack later on. And third, you want to, if you have kids, you want to allow your kids to get hungry, and that helps cut down on picky eating. So again, that's the way the French do it. So let's do it the way they do, which is the French no dieting meal plan. Okay, so they say a good meal ought to begin with hunger, because hunger is a sauce well blended and prepared for any food. So remember I said I used to think I was really, I just really loved food, and that's why I was, chubbier and I had such a huge appetite for food. Well, I was not actually enjoying my meals back then. The true enjoyment of meals comes with hunger. If you're not hungry and just always eating, question whether you're actually enjoying your meals or not. And consider altering your habits with regards to that. consider putting up with a bit of hunger so you can actually enjoy your meals at mealtime. Okay, so one last thing to become mindful of is paying attention to your emotions prior to reaching out for food. Always give yourself that second or 2 or 5 of pause. Even if you end up eating whatever it was you wanted, remember that pause is creating changes in your brain, and it will slowly begin to break down those old habits. So pause and consider why you're eating. And if you aren't hungry yet, see if you can delay it for a minute or 5 minutes, and then next time, extend that delay to 10 minutes or even more if you can. And slowly but surely, your nerve cells that cause you to reach out for food out of boredom or out of whatever unhappy emotion you may be feeling, they'll begin to shift and change. The key is to be patient. It can take 4 to 6 weeks for nerve cells to shift and change pathways. Now, I couldn't find a poster that said your brain can do this, but believe in the powers of your brain. It is a very intelligent system. Rely on it. It can do it. Just give it that 5-second pause. And if you can, have a glass of water and see if you can delay your reach for food for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Okay? And if within 10 to 20 minutes you're still hungry, then go ahead and eat. Okay, so how can we improve our healthy emotional eating responses? Well, drink a glass of water when you're unsure whether you're really hungry or not. And find and sustain healthy means of dealing with negative emotions. So go for a walk, practice mindfulness, meditate, learn to express yourself in healthy ways. So talk, journal, draw, create, so any kind of creative expression. And of course, self-care and self-love. Take a bath, get massages, schedule a spa day, do things that help nourish yourself in other ways other than food. We're going to have more practical tips in our stress management session, but here are a few for you to begin contemplating and incorporating. And then, of course, practice mindful eating. And every word mentioned in this slide here is true about mindful eating. We've already discussed hunger as an essential ingredient. Then you need to learn to savor the aroma, the textures, and the flavors of food when you're eating. And to make a connection and be present in that moment as you're eating. And yes, even indulgence. It's a good thing. It's allowed. Okay? Indulge, but make sure you're indulging mindfully even when you do. Okay. So in summary, we've talked about insulin and leptin resistance and how they lead to adiposity. This vicious cycle, however, can be broken by the following 3 steps. How? 1, fasting. It improves and increases insulin sensitivity. It increases one of the hormones known as adiponectin that increases fat usage, so fat burning. It also improves insulin sensitivity and boosts your metabolism. So fasting basically boosts every hormone that's necessary to increase fat burning and all the anti-aging hormones. As well, it increases growth hormone that we didn't talk about today, but growth hormone actually prevents muscle mass loss as well as bone density loss. Okay, so consider that as your anti-aging hormone. And fasting helps boost that, sometimes up to 300%, depending on how many hours you've been fasting. But, 14 to 6 hours of fasting can boost growth hormone up to, doubling it. And so, again, that's a hormone that ensures you don't lose muscle mass as you're changing your lifestyle and your menu plan. It also ensures you're not losing any bone mass. Next, mindful eating. Mindful eating helps to increase leptin production. Remember that hormone that signals to your brain that you're satiated and you're not hungry anymore, as well as other satiety signals. Mindful eating helps you better control your portions, and it allows for the proper release of necessary digestive enzymes and hormones so you're digesting and assimilating your nutrients well. Thirdly, adequate sleep and adequate omega-3 intake helps overcome any potential genetic predispositions to accumulating excess fat mass. Okay, so you've received a lot of information today, and it may have given you a ton of ideas, or it may be causing you some discomfort or stress with regards to how to implement all this. If the latter, follow the following steps. 1. Define a small and specific goal where your relationship to hunger is concerned. For example, I may think, okay, you know what, from here on, I will make it my goal to delay my first meal, let's say breakfast, by 3 hours. And so how are you going to do this? Second step, prepare by having your tools at your disposal. So for my case, with my example of delaying breakfast by 3 hours, I'm going to start my day with a glass of water or tea and coffee, and maybe having a small handful of nuts on hand for later in the day when I do get hungry. And I'm not going to have breakfast foods lying around in the fridge or in the cupboards so that I can eliminate the pull of habit of reaching for that box of cereal first thing in the morning. Third, find and change the blocking beliefs and memories around that habit you'd like to change. So with the example I gave, I've always been told breakfast is an important part of a healthy diet. Well, I'm learning that that's not true anymore. So I'm going to replace that belief with the new knowledge that breakfast must be a breaking of a fast. And here's a little tangent for you to feel more comfortable with this new information. In all previous traditions, cultures, and even religions, it has been typical practice that small chores started upon waking, and it wasn't until hours later that a small meal was consumed. Historically, some of the healthiest societies in the past did not eat breakfast. The word breakfast was not even a part of the vocabulary, and the typical breakfast did not even exist during biblical times. In the original Hebrew text of the Bible, breakfast was a tiny piece of bread at dawn, nothing more. As well, the ancient Greeks and Romans were very particular about eating their main meal at night. Scientifically, there is also growing evidence that the typical breakfast can actually be harmful. Did you know that? A study by the Human Nutrition Research in France indicated that the typical high-energy breakfast actually caused major adverse effects, including a strong inhibition of fat burning throughout the day, increase in bad cholesterol, and a decrease in good cholesterol. The research also concluded that high-energy breakfast does not appear to be favorable to health. They also indicated that the study's results do not support the current advice to consume more energy at breakfast. Moreover, there are other studies that have shown that consuming a high-energy breakfast actually leads to significant higher consumption of calories and food throughout the whole day. Okay, so eating breakfast doesn't mean you have more balanced meals throughout the day. It actually means you end up eating more throughout the day. Furthermore, a big breakfast has been shown to yield only a limited satiety effect, which lasts merely 2 hours after breakfast. So, you know, you think you're eating breakfast because you want to make sure you're less hungry through the day. No, that satiety, that feeling of satiation and feeling comfortable and not hungry only lasts for 2 hours post-breakfast. And so you're not doing your body any favor by filling it with fuel first thing in the morning. As well, our body is naturally programmed to have its highest energy first thing in the morning. And so with the release of cortisol and growth hormone, which gets released in the early hours of morning, you get a boost of glucose that starts circulating in your body. So your body is already releasing sugars into the bloodstream to help wake you up and give you a boost of energy first thing in the morning. And you are actually just dampening that effect by feeding yourself breakfast first thing in the morning. Let's see if you can rationalize around the idea of eating breakfast, okay? And try going without breakfast and see how your body feels. Now you want to strengthen those new beliefs with strong positive emotions. Well, how can you do that? I have an exercise for us. But before we get into doing this exercise, I just want to make this sort of point that our goal here is to fast so many hours in the day, and we're going to discuss it in our one-on-one visits. However, I want you to remember, I don't want you to starve. I don't want you to have your blood sugar crash to a level where you're, dizzy and lightheaded, okay? So always be mindful of your body. If you're feeling dizzy, if you're feeling lightheaded, if you're feeling that your body's not coping so well with fasting, make sure to eat. Always have snacks available, okay? If you're going to be fasting, if you are going to be following this guideline, let's first have our one-on-one visit where we discuss this. The point here is to just begin planting the seed for you to understand that hunger is not such a bad thing, for you to learn that, hey, perhaps you may consider delaying your breakfast if you're not hungry, okay? But my goal is not at all for you to starve yourself and go hungry. And the worst case scenario would be for you to suffer physically as a result. Okay, so always have a snack if you're going to do this, because it will be difficult initially as your body adjusts, so take it very slow. Now with regards to this exercise, I want you to remember this. If within 10 minutes of sort of having put up with your hunger, you're beginning to feel unwell, go ahead, feed yourself, eat something. Okay, now for others of us who, feeling faint and lightheaded and dizzy with hunger may not be an issue. The other issue may be that we are just so uncomfortable with the feeling of hunger. We get anxious and we get antsy and we just can't wait to eat, and it's just bringing up all these negative feelings and emotions that makes it difficult to deal with the hunger even though it may not be true hunger. So in cases where your hunger is not true hunger, I want you to practice doing this imagery and this exercise that we're going to be doing together. Okay, so let's do this. I want you to get into a comfortable position. Okay, so uncross your legs, have your arms resting on your legs or in a comfortable position. Relax your shoulders, adjust your hips on your chair to just relax. Now take a couple of deep breaths, starting with a big exhale. So we're starting with an exhale, blowing all the air out through your mouth as if you're blowing into a big, big balloon, completely emptying your lungs. And at the end, when you feel you have no more air left in your lungs, hold that breath for a couple seconds before you inhale again. Okay? Breathe through your nose with your inhale, and then completely empty your lungs out again, blowing all the air out through your mouth. Continue to breathe in this way, ensuring a complete emptying of your lungs with each exhale. Now imagine yourself walking in this path. It is beautiful here. It's sunny, It is cool, and you can feel the warm sun on your skin. You can hear the slow rushing water, and there are birds happily chirping in the background. Now, as you take slow, mindful steps on this path, completely aware and in tune with your surroundings and your body, you begin feeling these hunger pangs, and you smile. You're smiling because this means your body is working to rejuvenate itself. You're realizing this signals a boost in your physical resilience, a boost in your metabolism, and you begin getting excited for the lunch that you're going to prepare shortly. You begin imagining the ingredients you'll be using, the aromatic herbs, the tasty spices, the various textures. And again, you go back to your hunger and begin feeling a sense of gratitude for your body because you're admiring its inherent intelligence. You're mindful of how your body naturally knows how to take care of itself and how to heal itself. And you're feeling joy and pride in knowing you're doing what you can by taking care of it and giving it what it needs so it can do its job. Again, you're reminded of your hunger and how it is setting in motion all kinds of wonderful processes that's healthy and good and contributing to your energy and your overall well-being. Now prepare to take another deep breath in and fully empty your lungs by blowing all the air out, completely emptying your lungs, and then allowing for a slow inhale again through your nose. Now, how are you feeling? Notice you might be feeling slightly more positive towards hunger, perhaps feeling less resistance to the idea of fasting. I want you to focus and practice bringing more positive emotions around hunger. Whenever you start to begin feeling anxiety brewing around hunger, practice positive, this positive imagery and see if you can rationalize with that part of your brain with regards to, the beliefs you have around hunger, and see if you can replace those beliefs with the new knowledge that hunger is actually good for you. Fasting is bringing about positive hormone balance. It's setting fat burning in motion for you. Okay? The key here is to practice. You may not always be able to bring about this positive emotion, but again, your brain it knows what it's doing and it knows what it needs to do. So just practice it, and slowly over time, you will begin to notice benefits. Okay? And you will notice that hunger begins to feel more comfortable for you. Fasting begins to become easier for you. Okay? So again, no pressure. I am just planting tiny little seeds in your conscious and subconscious mind where hunger and fasting is concerned. Just do what you can, and if all you can do is take 5 seconds of mindfulness before you reach for a snack when you're not hungry, if that's all you can do it. If all you can do is reach for a glass of water when you're not sure whether you're hungry or not hungry, and that's all you do, great, just do that. Start with that, okay? All the best with your efforts, and I look forward to our next session. Please let me know if you have any feedback, questions, or concerns. Send me an email. Would love to hear from you. All the best.